The witch wind wails, the night is drear, hoary frost bites and darkness leers. Over fields of snow, 'neath winter's yoke, where ancient oaks in silence choke. Come hither now, and close the door, let mischief creep across the floor. For Yule is come, its cheer beguiled, with spectres grim and dreams defiled. They prowl the moors, they haunt the glen, they quicken hearts of hardy men. They scratch the doors and murmur woe, they beckon join the dread below. Round flickering flames are stories told, of restless dead and mournful moans, of faces pale through frosted panes, that freeze warm blood in virile veins. So mark this truth, though joy may reign, Yule bears its weight of grief and pain. For in its mirth the shadows loom, the ghostly heralds of the gloom. Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin. What you just heard was a poem that I wrote for last year's event of Ghosts of Christmas Past, which is returning this year, and I'm here to announce it. So, Ghosts of Christmas Past, it was an event that I came up with the idea for last year. Uh, I'm a lifelong horror fan. I have a hard time letting go of Halloween once that's over, and I like to continue, the spooky season. I do that in any way I can. And last year, I was thinking, how lamentable it was that we no longer told ghost stories at Christmas time. It was a time-honored tradition with the Victorians, but it was eventually lost. And I thought, maybe I'll read some ghost stories this year to try and bring back that tradition. And I figured after that, it occurred to me that other people might want to join me in this. So that was born the first iteration of Ghosts of Christmas Past, Resurrecting a Tradition. Now, to participate in this event, it's very, very simple. Really, the whole thing is about reading ghost short stories around the holiday season. So in December, if you read a short ghost story, you've basically participated. Now, in order to kind of connect it back to the Victorian tradition, and I'll get a little more into the history in just a moment, we do have a group read of a Victorian ghost story, one that is fairly well known and respected, and that would be Charles Dickens's The Signalman, which I think was maybe published 1866, unless I'm mistaken with that. Dickens, we wanted to choose as our group read this year, kind of in honor of his place in helping to create the tradition of reading ghost stories around Christmas time. Now, of course, he's well known for writing A Christmas Carol, which is really the thing that set off this tradition. But he wrote a lot of short ghost stories. I believe many of them were more humorous, not quite serious, but I think that The Signalman is a more serious work. And I haven't read it yet, so I'm really excited to read it for this event. The other ways that you can participate. Now, you don't have to read The Signalman. We do have a Voxer group for those who are participating, and we'll be discussing The Signalman in there. But you could, of course, share the things that you're reading. And I'll leave the link for that in the description below. But you can also, in order to participate, read another Victorian ghost story, anything of your choosing. Or there's a third option. You can read a more modern ghost story around this time. Really, you can do all three if you want. You can just do one of them. It's a very simple event to take part in, because really, it's not about the particulars. It's more about the spirit of the thing, without intending that pun. So it's about reviving the tradition. It's about reading ghost stories once again around this time of year. Now, why read ghost stories? Now, for a lot of modern, readers, people who celebrate Christmas, it might seem like a weird fit to have a spooky ghost story around this time of year. But, there's evidence. We know the song Most Wonderful Time of Year. It says there'll be, scary ghost stories. That's in the lyrics for a reason. This was a part of the Christmas tradition. As Christmas was growing as a sort of family holiday, ghosts were right along there with it. So I guess a little bit of historical background is in order, and I won't be long with this. But it goes back to even pre-Christian times. The holiday season, what we would say, especially late December, that's also when the winter solstice is. That's when things are darkest. The night is longest, the day is shortest. And in pre-Christian times, especially, in places like Northern Europe and other sections of Europe as well, this was seen as a sort of liminal time. This is the darkest before the light starts returning. And this is a time when people are going to be huddled around fires in their homes. It's cold outside. They're going to be sharing stories. And if any loved ones had died recently, their absence would be certainly conspicuous. But this was a time when people thought that, the world between the living and dead was thinnest. There's even, stories about the wild hunt, this kind of ghostly procession led by perhaps figures like Odin that would travel the sky and maybe snatch up people if they were caught out unprotected. So it was a time of year that was not necessarily associated with family and innocence and children. It was a time of dread. It was a time of fear. That poem that I read aloud at the very beginning of this video, that was my attempt last year to try and write a poem in the style of Dickens. Now, I don't think I succeeded in actually evoking Dickens, but I think it still came out pretty good nonetheless. And what I tried to invoke in that poem was that feeling that more like a pre-Christian people would have had for this time of year. That it was more of a scary time than anything else. Now, as Christianity took over, it absorbed a lot of those things. That stuff didn't really go away. And then you get into the 19th century, and Dickens, once again, with his work, A Christmas Carol, it was so unbelievably popular, but he showed that ghost stories could be told to tell, moral lessons about Christmas. This basically created a flood of imitators. Some of them very good, some of them maybe not so good. They would, be inside magazines all the time. Dickens himself edited magazines and would always put ghost stories in there. So really from around the 1840s up until at least the 1890s, ghost stories were just an essential part of Christmas celebrations. Now, we should also remember this is a time when ghosts were on people's mind in many ways for many reasons. Spiritualism was at its height. People were looking for scientific means to examine the afterlife, to try and find proof of ghosts, going to seances and mediums and spirit photography. Even those who, were not religious-minded, spiritualism offered a way for people to investigate the afterlife in a more scientific way. And it swept a lot of people up. So ghosts were a part of life. And we should also remember the Victorians, there was high mortality rates, but they also really kind of made a high ritual of death and mourning. They almost made a pageantry out of it. So it really kind of fit with their mentality. The ghost story is really considered continued popularity up until around World War I. People's tastes started changing at that point. And also in the United States after World War I, especially by World War II, Halloween had grown in popularity. And it sort of took on the responsibility for being spooky. So you would get all the ghost stuff out of the way before Christmas went around, and you had more of a Coca-Cola Santa Claus to take over and have a transition. My goal is to sort of start blurring that boundary again. It already happens in our stores where, I've got, before Halloween's even done, you've already got Christmas stuff crowding it out inside the stores. So I figure, why not blend them all together? If Christmas is going to keep on, pushing its way into my Halloween celebrations, I'm going to push Halloween into Christmas celebrations even farther. And luckily, I had a lot of people who were willing to go along with me. Not exactly for my motivations, but because ghost stories, they're fun, and they can say a lot. And, when it's dark, when it's cold, when the wind is howling, you got the fire going, whatever it might be, enjoying a ghost story, it really does fit well with this time of year. So, once again, if you want to join us, you can either follow along, join us in the group read, which basically, it's a short story, Charles Dickens's The Signalman. It doesn't take that long to read. Let us know your thoughts. And if you read other Victorian ghost stories, also let us know your thoughts on those. If you read modern ghost stories, let us know your thoughts there. It's a very easy thing to participate in, and we would love to hear what you have found, what you've read, what you think about it, what your ideas are. If you think that this is fitting after reading a ghost story this time of year, if you haven't done it before. I hope you'll join us. I am joined by some great co-hosts this year. We've got Elaine from Cobalt Dragon. We've got Debs from Rainer Reads. And joining us as a co-host for the first time this year is Pat from Book Chat with Pat. So they're all great people who have a lot of experience with ghost stories. I think a lot of them I think they all have multiple books of short ghost stories. I actually don't have a lot. The only one that I really have right now is this. So this is an old Oxford anthology, and the Signalman is not in here. So if you want to read the Signalman, like I said, maybe I haven't said it. It is found in most anthologies, not all of them. It is, however, public domain. It's on Project Gutenberg. I'll leave a link for that below if you want to read it there. I have just ordered, actually, the Complete Ghost Stories of Charles Dickens. I haven't received it in the mail yet, but the Signalman is in there. And I got that online for less than $5. So it can be found fairly easily, but it's not going to be in every Victorian type of ghost story collection. So you just have to watch out for that. But yeah, that's about it. And hope you'll join us. Hope you'll help keep it spooky all throughout the Christmas season. And yeah, if you do, please let us know. Thank you, Booktube.